I'm Elena Foster, 32 years old, born and raised in Manchester, and 3 weeks ago, I woke up trapped inside my own body, paralysed, silent, and screaming on the inside, while the man I loved stood over my hospital bed and whispered, "It might be better if she doesn't wake up." Those 11 words didn't just break me. They buried the last version of who I used to be. If you're watching this right now, don't scroll. Don't look away. Because what happened to me can happen to anyone, any woman who trusts the wrong man with her whole life. Before I tell you the truth, the real truth, please drop your city in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from, because what I'm about to say will make your chest tighten. On the night everything shattered, I wasn't lying in that hospital bed yet. I was just Elena, an admin accountant who color codes spreadsheets for a living, makes tea for the whole office, and tries her best to keep life simple. And Oliver Benson, my husband of 8 years? He wasn't the monster I know now. No. He was warm, charming, protective, or at least he played that part so perfectly that even my own mother adored him. We had a terraced house in Didsbury, Sunday roasts with his family, summers in Cornwall, Christmas matching pyjamas, the whole quiet British marriage package. I thought I knew every part of him. I thought he was home. But every woman who's lived long enough knows one thing. It's never the stranger who ruins your life. It's the man sharing your bed. The night before the accident, everything felt off. Oliver came home later than usual, suit creased, tie loose, smelling of a perfume that definitely wasn't mine. He kissed my cheek without really looking at me and said, "Rough day at work, love. Big client. Harper stayed late too. We're exhausted." Harper, his new assistant. 26, blonde, sharp-smiled, and always wearing heels too high for the office. She called him Ollie from day one, a nickname I wasn't allowed to use. Something twisted in my stomach that night, a warning I tried so hard to ignore. Because British women like me, we've been trained since childhood not to make a fuss. I should have made a fuss. The next evening, October 30th, I left the office late after finishing month-end reports. Rain hammered Manchester like it always does. The M60 was slick, shiny, unforgiving. I remember fastening my seatbelt, turning the heater on, my wipers fighting the downpour, and then traffic ahead. Brake lights glowing red. I pressed my brakes. Nothing. I pressed again. Harder. Still nothing. And that moment, that split second of pure animal terror, I knew. I wasn't going to stop. My car wasn't going to stop. I yanked the wheel, the tires skidded, and the last thing I remember is the sound metal folding, my body thrown sideways, the world exploding in white. Then darkness. A deep, suffocating darkness. But I didn't die. I woke up days later, locked in, fully conscious, unable to move or speak, or even open my eyes properly. I could hear everything. The machines, the nurses, the doctors, and Oliver, standing right beside me, holding my hand, playing the grieving husband. He told them all how devastated he was, how he'd do anything to have me back. But then he whispered to Harper, thinking I was gone, "If she doesn't wake up, it solves everything." My heart didn't break. It detonated. And that is when I knew. My accident wasn't an accident. Something was wrong. Something was planned. And every breath I took from that moment was a countdown to discovering the truth about the man who promised to love me. If you're still watching, comment, "I'm here, so I know you're following this." This story gets darker, much darker, because the man I married didn't just cheat. He tried to kill me. They say the worst kind of silence is the silence you can't escape. Not the calm, peaceful kind, but the type that presses down on your chest until you feel like your ribs might crack. That was the silence I woke up in. But let me take you to the exact moment everything shifted. When the world around me went still, yet something inside me roared awake. Because the first time I heard Oliver and Harper speak freely, I realized I wasn't just fighting to survive, I was fighting to expose them. The morning after I regained awareness, I could hear the nurses chatting beside my bed, the typical NHS banter that used to comfort me during GP visits. But now, it felt like gunshots in a library. Every word reminded me I couldn't speak back, couldn't move, couldn't scream for help. "Poor love," one nurse whispered. "She's not coming back, is she?" Not coming back. If only they knew I wanted to leap up and shake them, shout that I was right here, fully awake inside this frozen shell. But my body? Dead weight. My mind? Wide awake. Around midday, Oliver walked in. The door opened with that soft pneumatic hiss I'd come to recognize, and I literally felt the air shift, the way it always did when he entered a room. I used to think that was love. Now I know it was dread I'd mistaken for safety. He sat down beside me, shifting the mattress. I could sense his body heat near my arm, hear the way he exhaled heavily, as if the mere sight of me exhausted him. "Elena, love," he whispered. His voice cracked expertly, the way actors do when they're hitting their emotional beats. "I need you to fight, please." Lies. All of it. I would have spat in his face if I could, but his next words, God, they almost paralyzed me more deeply than my injuries already had. "Harper's worried sick," he added softly. Harper, not my mum, not his parents, not my sister. Harper. My stomach, or whatever part of me I could still feel, twisted into something sharp. Footsteps clicked in after him. Heels. Her heels. "Is she the same?" Harper asked quietly. "The same," Oliver murmured. "No changes." They both fell silent. And then Harper sat down on the other side of my bed. So close her perfume, that synthetic vanilla scent I always hated, filled my nose. "She looks peaceful," Harper whispered. Peaceful. I wanted to scream. Oliver made a low, frustrated sound. "Peaceful isn't the word I'd choose." "What word would you choose?" Harper asked. And then Oliver spoke the sentence that split my world open. Trapped. If I'd had control over even a single muscle, I would have flinched. Instead, I had to swallow the raw humiliation of knowing he was right. I was trapped, trapped with them, trapped hearing everything. There was shuffling, a soft thud. Someone, Oliver, adjusting his chair closer to Harper. "I hate seeing her like this," Harper said, voice cracking just slightly. My blood boiled. She hated seeing me like this. The woman whose husband she'd been sleeping with? But Oliver's voice, his voice, is what haunted me most. "It's cruel," he whispered. "Cruel to her. Cruel to us. She wouldn't want to live like this. Us." He said us, like they were the victims, like my death was meant to free them. Harper inhaled shakily. "Do you think they'll let you decide soon? The doctors, I mean." He hesitated. Then, possibly. They said 2 weeks. If nothing changes, they'll speak to me about options. Options, meaning pulling the plug, meaning killing me without ever lifting a hand. Except he already had lifted a hand, hadn't he? He'd cut my brakes. I just didn't know that part yet. They kept talking. Low, soft, intimate, as if I was a pet they were putting down. "She'll never be the same," Harper murmured. "She won't come back," Oliver added. "This is what she'd want. It's kinder this way." Sentence after sentence, slicing through me. And then, like a knife twisting, Harper said the words that still haunt me. "When it's over, we'll finally have the life we talked about." She said we'll, not Oliver. She said it. We'll. As if she already belonged in my place. As if my life was just a messy obstacle in their timeline. Oliver kissed her. I heard it. The disgusting, wet sound of it. Right there. Not 3 feet from my paralyzed body. I cried, silent tears I couldn't wipe soaking into my pillow. But they didn't notice. Or maybe they did and didn't care. "We just need patience," Oliver whispered. "A little longer. Once this is settled, everything will fall into place." Settled. He used that word to describe my death. They left after a few minutes, 10, maybe 15, but the things they said stayed clinging to the air long after the door closed. I lay there, drowning in their words. Trapped. Cruel. Options. Settled. Will. Every sentence confirmed what my instincts had been screaming the night of the accident. This wasn't fate. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't the rain or the road. Something darker was at play. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, 2 days later, Oliver returned alone. His voice wasn't sad this time. It was impatient, and he whispered something into the dark that made my heart stop beating for a full second. "Why couldn't you just die like you were meant to?" That was the moment, the exact moment I realized. I was never supposed to survive that crash. There are moments in life that split you clean in half. Before and after. And that whisper, Oliver's low, impatient growl, asking why I hadn't just died like I was meant to, was the blade that carved my life into two pieces. Before, I was a wife, a woman who trusted. Someone who thought love could save anything. After, I was prey, hunted, breathing on borrowed time. But here's the part that will never leave me. I didn't break. I woke up. He said it when he thought the room was empty. When he thought the machines were the only witnesses, when he believed his plan was sealed tight, wrapped neatly in the lie of a rainy night accident. Oliver leaned in close, so close I felt the warmth of his breath near my forehead, and muttered, "You were supposed to go quietly, Elena. Christ, why couldn't you just die?" A small, helpless whimper escaped my throat entirely, involuntary, one of the few noises my body could still produce. He froze. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Not him. Not me. Not even the machines. Or at least it felt that way. Then, footsteps outside. A nurse approaching. Oliver straightened instantly, switching masks faster than anyone I'd ever seen. He grabbed my hand, the same hand he'd wanted cold, and pretended to choke up. "Please, please come back to me," he said loudly, perfectly timed as the nurse entered the room. Oscar-worthy. Truly. Still no response. "I'm afraid," the nurse said softly, checking the monitors, "but we're keeping everything stable for now." Oliver nodded, sniffing dramatically. The nurse squeezed his arm sympathetically. If only she knew. When he left the room, I lay there trembling in the only way I could, inside my mind, thoughts colliding like crashing trains. He wanted me dead. He expected me dead. He was angry I wasn't dead. And he was planning something. I just didn't know what. Not yet. But the next visit, the one that confirmed my worst fears, happened the following evening. It was raining again. The kind of relentless Manchester rain that makes the whole world sound like static. My eyelids were heavy that day. But I heard everything. The door opened softly. But it wasn't Oliver. It was Harper. Her heels tapped across the tiles, slow, almost cautious. She stood beside me, breathing heavily, as if she'd run up the hallway. Then, in a whisper so shaky it almost sounded scared, she said, "I know you can hear me." Every mental muscle in me snapped to attention, because that sentence, that single sentence, changed everything. Harper moved closer, and for the first time since the accident, her voice didn't sound smug, sweet, or sickeningly soft. She sounded terrified. Terrified of him. "Oliver's losing control," she whispered. "He's not himself." Shockingly, it almost sounded like she was crying. "I didn't know he'd go this far. I didn't know he'd actually do something to your car." There it was. The confirmation I hadn't yet heard spoken aloud. The truth that had been circling like a vulture in my mind since the crash. My brakes. My bloody brakes. Harper sobbed quietly, her breath hitching. "He told me he only meant to scare you. He never said he'd cut the lines completely." My pulse monitor suddenly spiked loud, urgent beeping. Harper flinched. "Oh God, did you hear that? Are you Elena? I didn't come here to hurt you, I swear." If I'd been able to move, I would have lunged at her throat. I would have shown her exactly how much I'd heard. But all I could do was listen. "He's planning to finish it," she whispered. "He said he'd talk to the doctor tomorrow about removing life support. He thinks it'll be painless. Humane. Humane." The word nearly sent me spiraling. "He thinks you being alive is inconvenient," Harper sobbed. "I swear I didn't know he'd cut the brakes. I swear I thought it was just talk." She sniffled, then said the most unexpected sentence of the night. "I'm scared of him too." I wanted to laugh. A cold, hollow, broken laugh. She was scared? Of him? What about me? The woman lying paralyzed in a hospital bed, listening to her husband plan her death for the second time? She kept whispering, "He's not the man I thought he was. He's dark, Elena. He's dangerous. When he gets angry, I see something in his eyes that doesn't feel human. My pulse spiked again, because I had seen that too, years before the affair. Tiny flashes, but I ignored them, because that's what good wives do. Harper wiped her nose and muttered, I had to tell you, I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to stop him. I shouldn't even be here. She stood up abruptly. Please, please don't hate me, she whispered. Then she left. The room went quiet, and for the first time since waking up locked inside my body, I felt something stronger than fear. Rage. Cold. Pure. Electric. The kind that shakes a person awake from the inside. Someone had to stop him. But I couldn't shout. I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink properly yet. I had nothing, or so I thought, because help was coming, and it arrived in scrubs. The next morning, while my mind replayed Harper's confession in an endless, vicious loop, a nurse walked in, a woman I'd seen several times but never truly listened to. Emma. Emma Rodriguez, 30 years old. Calm eyes. Steady hands. The only nurse who always talked to me, not around me. She checked my monitors, adjusted the sheets, then leaned in to suction the ventilator tube, a routine procedure. And as she wiped a tear from my cheek, a tear I didn't even feel, slide down, she whispered, You're crying, but they said you're unresponsive. She froze. I froze. Then slowly, carefully, she whispered again, Elena, can you hear me? My entire body surged with hope, so fierce it almost hurt. Because this was the moment everything finally shifted. This was the moment someone realized I was still alive. Some moments don't make noise. They slip into your life quietly like a breath, like a flicker. Yet they rearrange everything. For me, that moment was a single tear. A tear I didn't choose, didn't feel, didn't control. It betrayed me, but it also saved me. Emma stared at me for a long time, too long for it to be just routine. Her gloved thumb hovered over my cheek, tracing the dampness she didn't expect to find. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You're crying. A statement, not a question. Something in her tone shifted an unease, a deep suspicion. I could practically feel her mind racing, collecting small details, remembering things she must have noticed over the past few days. My heart monitor beeped faster. She glanced at it. Then she looked back at me. Elena, she whispered slowly, like someone approaching a wild animal. If you can hear me, blink, blink. A simple request, an impossible task. I didn't know if my body would obey, but I tried. I tried so hard my skull felt like it would crack open. And then, my right eyelid twitched. Barely. But enough, Emma gasped. Her eyes widened. Oh my God, she breathed. You can hear me. I wanted to scream yes, to hold her wrists, to beg her not to leave me alone in this hell, but my body was still a prison made of skin and silence. She leaned closer until her forehead nearly touched mine. Okay, Elena. Listen to me, she whispered quickly. I'm going to ask one more thing. Blink again if this is real. Everything in me tightened. My lungs, my throat, my chest frozen. But my eyelid, it twitched again, this time more clearly. Emma clapped a hand over her mouth, eyes filling with tears. You're locked in, she whispered. You're conscious. Her voice was shaking from fear, from shock, from the weight of what that meant. She stood up, practically stumbling backward. Jesus Christ, how long have you... No, doesn't matter. Her breathing quickened. I need to tell the doctor. I need... My heart rate spiked. The monitor shrieked. No. No, she couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not with Oliver still visiting daily. Not with Harper trembling about his plan. My panic must have been loud through the machines, because Emma froze. She turned back slowly. Elena, someone's hurting you, aren't they? I couldn't blink, couldn't nod. But the monitor screamed for me. Beep, beep, beep. Faster, sharper. Emma's expression changed. Her face tightened with a seriousness I'd never seen before. Okay, she whispered. I won't tell anyone yet. Not until I understand. Not until we figure out what's going on. I wanted to sob. For the first time, I wasn't alone in the dark. Emma stayed after her shift ended, sitting beside me with a notepad, whispering questions, watching for even the smallest flicker of my eyelid. It became our secret language. Blink, if yes. Don't blink if no. We tried simple things first. Is your name Elena? Blink. Do you know where you are? Blink. Is someone hurting you? My eyelid twitched so violently I thought I'd tear something. Emma sucked in a sharp breath. Is it a member of the staff? Nothing. A family member? Nothing. She hesitated. Is it your husband? My eyelid twitched so hard, the heart monitor screamed. Emma covered her mouth. Oh my God! Her pencil slid from her fingers. The room felt smaller, suddenly like the walls were listening. She whispered, more careful now. Did he do something to cause the accident? I forced every ounce of willpower I had left into that tiny muscle. Blink. Emma's breath trembled out of her lungs as if she'd been punched. Oh, Elena. She sank into the chair beside me, staring into space, seeing the shape of my nightmare forming. I don't know how, but I'll help you, she said. We'll figure this out, but you can't let him know you're awake. Not yet. If he realizes, her voice broke, and I understood. If Oliver realized I was conscious, he'd kill me properly. She stayed until the hallway lights dimmed, until the hospital settled into its eerie, fragile silence. Before leaving, she squeezed my hand gently. I'll come back early tomorrow. We'll try to communicate properly. She paused at the door. And Elena, you're safe with me, I promise. Then she left. The room felt colder without her, but for the first time since the crash, the cold didn't feel hopeless. Someone knew. Someone cared. I wasn't invisible anymore. But that hope lasted less than 24 hours. Because the next morning, Oliver came back. And this time, he wasn't pretending to be heartbroken. He was furious. The door hadn't even closed yet, and I could feel it, the rage radiating off him like heat from a burner. His footsteps were sharp, aggressive, echoing through the sterile room. He didn't greet me, didn't take my hand, didn't even sigh dramatically like he usually did when he wanted sympathy. He leaned over me too close and hissed, "Stop dragging this out." My pulse monitor beeped wildly. He slammed a hand on the railing of my bed. "You're making this harder than it has to be. You should have died that night." He looked around the room, scanning every corner like he expected someone to be listening. Then, with a cold smile that sliced straight down my spine, he whispered, "I'll fix it soon." The door opened. He straightened instantly, switching masks again. And I realized Oliver wasn't just dangerous. He was impatient. There's a particular kind of fear that doesn't scream. It settles. Slow. Cold. Like frost climbing up your spine. That was the fear I felt the moment Oliver leaned over me and hissed, "You should have died that night." But here's the thing about fear. It sharpens you. It forces you to listen. Really listen to every sound, every word, every breath. And that day, I listened more carefully than I had ever listened in my life. Oliver stood over me for a few moments. His jaw clenched so tightly I could hear the faint grind of his teeth. His eyes empty, glassy, like something crucial inside him had rotted away, scanned my face for any movement, any slip, any twitch, any sign of life. He wanted to be sure. He needed to be sure. Because if I was conscious, his whole widower-claiming insurance fantasy would fall apart. His voice dropped again, barely a whisper. "I'm sorting this. Soon. I'm not letting you ruin everything." My heart monitor betrayed me a sudden spike of panic. He smirked. "Oh, that bothers you, does it?" he murmured, leaning closer. "Pathetic. After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me?" Everything he did for me. He actually said that. Before he could say more, the sound of approaching steps reappeared, steady, confident, familiar. Emma. Oliver straightened instantly, adjusting his collar, smoothing his hair, transforming from monster to grieving husband in under a second. The door swung open. "Mr. Benson," Emma said, nodding politely. "Emma," he replied, putting on his trembling voice. Any updates? Anything at all? No changes today, she said carefully. But her vitals are stable. Stable, he whispered, squeezing my hand gently, forcing a show of affection. Emma watched him, too closely. Her eyes narrowed for a split second. He felt it. He stepped back. Well, he said with a sigh, just keep me informed. He left the room with the same fake heaviness in his shoulders he always used when staff were watching. The moment the door clicked shut, Emma exhaled sharply. That man, she muttered under her breath. Then she turned back to me. Elena, we need to talk. She pulled the blinds halfway, dimming the room. Her face was set serious, but not fearful, determined. I know he hurt you, she whispered. Your response earlier made that clear. But I need details, or we won't be able to help you. Details. If only I could give them. I blinked once. Our signal for yes. She grabbed her notepad. Okay. Blink once for yes, twice for no. We started. Did he cause your accident? Blink. Did he tamper with your car? Blink. Did he cut the brakes? Blink. Emma shut her eyes for a moment, jaw tight. Oh my God. Her voice shook. Elena, this is attempted murder. The words hung in the air, heavy, final. Attempted murder. The thing I already knew, but hearing someone else say it made it real in a new, terrifying way. She steadied herself. I'm going to ask something harder, she whispered. Is he planning to end your life here? In the hospital? My eyelid flicked immediately. Emma gasped. Her pen clattered to the floor. Elena, we need help. Real help. But we have to be smart if he finds out you're conscious. The monitor beeped sharply, confirming everything. Emma took a step back, breathing hard. Then, I'll come back tonight, after shifts change. We'll work out a message. Something I can take to the consultant or the safeguarding team. A message. A lifeline. But before she could continue, the door handle clicked again. We both froze. It wasn't Oliver. Not yet. It was Harper. Emma stiffened instantly. Harper's eyes were puffy, mascara smudged, hands trembling. Can I talk to her? Harper asked weakly. Emma didn't move. Why? Harper swallowed. Because I don't know what to do. Oliver's losing it. He's saying things that I'm scared. Emma's voice hardened. You should be. Harper blinked, startled. Then her eyes fell on me. Elena, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I swear I didn't know he'd... Emma cut her off sharply. Enough. If you want to talk, do it quickly. Then leave. Harper stepped closer to my bed, hands shaking so violently she had to grip the rail. She bent low and whispered. He said tonight might be the right time. The right time. The right time for what? She didn't need to say it. I knew. Emma knew. And Harper, despite being part of the betrayal, finally understood too. He's going to do something. Harper choked out. I think he's planning to come late, when fewer staff are around. Emma moved instantly. Out, she snapped. Now. Harper obeyed, fleeing like a child caught in a lie. Emma turned to me, eyes blazing. Tonight, she whispered. He's coming tonight. My monitor spiked again. She leaned close, voice trembling but fierce. I won't let him touch you. I swear on my life. She looked toward the exit, as if calculating every second, every shift rotation, every blind spot in the corridor. Then she said the sentence that carried me through the next hours. We're not just surviving this, Elena. We're fighting back. Emma rushed out of the room, leaving the door open just a sliver enough to watch the corridor, enough to move fast if she had to. And I waited. Hours passed. Nurses changed shifts. The building grew quieter, lights dimmer, footsteps rarer. The kind of silence predators love. Around 11:48 p.m., I heard it. Heavy steps, measured, deliberate. Not a nurse, not a doctor. A man. A man who knew exactly where he was going. My heart monitor screamed in terror, but the footsteps didn't stop. They grew louder, closer. Then a shadow appeared under the door. He was here. Oliver. And he wasn't coming to visit. He was coming to finish what he started. There's a moment, right before something terrible happens, when the world holds its breath, The corridor outside my room felt like that, silent, suspended, waiting to snap. Oliver's shadow stretched under the door, long and sharp, cutting across the floor like a blade. My heart monitor beeped wildly, shrill and panicked, but I couldn't control it, couldn't slow it down, couldn't hide the terror clawing through my chest. The door handle twitched. Once, twice, then slowly, painfully slowly, it turned. The door cracked open, only a sliver at first, but enough to reveal half of Oliver's face, the half that wasn't pretending anymore. His expression wasn't the one he wore for nurses. It wasn't grief, it wasn't exhaustion, it was focus, cold, clinical focus. The same look he'd probably had when he stood beside my crashed car, making sure it looked like an accident. He stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. The click echoed through the room like a gunshot. "Elena," he whispered, his voice low and almost tender. "You're still here, still fighting. You don't make anything easy, do you?" I couldn't scream, couldn't speak, but inside, I was begging Emma, "Hurry, please." Oliver approached the bed slowly, like a man walking toward something inevitable. "You know," he murmured, "I rehearsed this, over and over, thought about what I'd say, how I'd feel, but now that I'm here, it's almost peaceful." He touched the rail of my bed with 2 fingers, tracing the cold metal. "Do you remember," he whispered, "when we talked about death? That night on the sofa, when we watched that documentary? You said you never wanted to be kept alive by machines. You said you'd rather go peacefully." We'd never had that conversation, but he'd convinced himself we had. All abusers do that: rewrite memories, rewrite truth, rewrite you. He stepped closer. "But what really convinced me," he continued, "is that you're not you anymore. You're just a body, a shell. And I can't live like this. I can't survive like this. So," he reached into his coat, and I knew what he was there to do. He wasn't going to wait for the hospital ethics board. He wasn't going to wait for a legal withdrawal. He was going to do it himself. Slow, quiet, untraceable. His hand emerged, holding a syringe. My blood turned to ice. "It's just a sedative," he whispered. "Something to help you slip away. No pain, no more machines, no more suffering." He took my wrist gently, almost lovingly, as he prepared the injection. His thumb brushed my skin. "You should have died the first time," he murmured. "Let's not drag this out any longer." My heart monitor screamed so loudly it filled the room. He glanced at it and smirked. "Don't worry," he said softly. "It'll all be over soon." He lifted the needle. My vision blurred with terror. And then, bang. The door flew open so violently it slammed into the wall. Oliver spun around. Emma stood in the doorway, breathless, eyes on fire. "Step away from her," she said, voice shaking but fierce. Oliver froze, then smiled. A slow, poisonous smile. "Emma," he said lightly, "you shouldn't be here. This is a private moment between husband and wife." "Drop the syringe," she ordered. His smile widened. "What syringe?" he said, hiding it behind his back. She stepped farther into the room. "I'm warning you, Oliver." "You?" He laughed softly. "You think you can stop me?" "I don't have to stop you," Emma said. "I just have to keep you in here long enough." Oliver's face shifted. Confusion, then suspicion, then anger. "What did you do?" he snapped. Emma didn't answer. She simply stepped in front of my bed, shielding me with her body. Oliver's voice sharpened. "What did you do?" And then, police sirens, faint but unmistakable. Oliver's breathing changed quick, sharp, frantic. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He lunged toward me. Emma grabbed his arm. They struggled violently, brutally, the syringe glinting between them. Emma cried out as Oliver shoved her back. He spun toward me again, but the door burst open a second time. 2 police officers stormed in, tackling Oliver to the ground so hard the syringe skittered across the floor. He screamed a raw, animal sound as they forced his arms behind his back. "Get off me!" he roared. "You don't understand. She's already gone. She's nothing." I had never seen him like that. Unhinged. Exposed. stripped of every mask. And then, finally, handcuffs clamped around his wrists. He was done, finished. Emma rushed to my bedside, trembling, brushing tears from her face. "It's okay," she whispered. "He's not touching you ever again." For the first time since the accident, I felt something close to relief. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because Oliver lifted his head from the ground, eyes burning with hatred, and hissed, "This isn't finished, Elena." His voice was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that promised something worse. And even as the officers dragged him out of the room, kicking and spitting, I knew this was only the beginning. They dragged Oliver down the corridor, still shouting, still fighting, still calling my name like a curse he wanted to carve into my skin. Emma stayed beside me, gripping my hand as if she could anchor me to the world. I thought everything was over. But then one of the officers returned, pale, sweating. "There's something else," he said to Emma. "What?" she whispered. He hesitated, looked at me, lowered his voice. "We found something on him, a second syringe, and a note." "A note?" Emma asked. He nodded. "It has her name on it," he said, pointing at me. "And another name." Emma swallowed. "Whose?" The officer answered quietly. "Yours." Emma's face went white. And just like that, we realized Oliver hadn't planned to kill just me. He had planned to kill both of us. There are moments in life that don't just frighten you. They rearrange you. Hearing that Oliver had a second syringe wasn't shocking. I knew the man he'd become. I'd heard it in every whisper, every threat, every breath he'd spoken beside my unconscious body. But the note? A list of names. My name. Emma's name. That was the moment something inside me shifted. This wasn't desperation. It wasn't panic. It wasn't even about insurance money anymore. Oliver had crossed into something darker, colder. A place where murder wasn't a plan. It was an instinct. The officer stood frozen in the doorway, his hand shaking slightly as he held the folded paper. Emma took it from him. Her fingers trembled. Her face drained of colour. She opened it slowly, like she already feared what she'd find. Her eyes scanned the page, then widened. There were 3 names: Elena Benson, Emma Walsh, Harper Clark. My breath caught. Harper, the mistress, the accomplice, the girl who betrayed me, but also the one who warned us, who told Emma that Oliver was coming. Emma whispered the names out loud, her voice barely forming the words. He was going to kill all 3 of us. The room tilted around me. Not physically, but emotionally. It wasn't just attempted murder anymore. It was a sequence, a plan, a complete erasure of anyone who could expose him. The officer cleared his throat. "There was more," he said. "On the back of the paper. There's a timeline. A timeline." Emma looked at him sharply. "What kind of timeline?" He hesitated, then answered quietly. "For tonight." My stomach twisted. A timeline for 3 murders in one night. And I was supposed to be first. Emma sat down hard, wiping a hand across her face. "Elena, this man, he didn't just lose control. He planned this. He prepped this." Her voice cracked not out of fear for herself, but for me. "He was ready to kill you, then come for me, and then Harper." The officer nodded grimly. "We believe he intended to make each death look natural, accidental, or medically explainable. That syringe," he gestured to the evidence bag, "contains enough medication to stop a patient on life support without raising suspicion." I felt sick. Oliver had stood beside my bed for days, rehearsing my murder, perfecting the method. Emma steadied herself. "We need to find Harper," she said sharply. "Now!" The officers exchanged a look. "We already tried," one said. "She left the hospital about an hour ago. We don't know where she went." Emma's breath hitched. Oh God! Because while I was in a secured ward, surrounded by police, Harper was alone, vulnerable, easy. And Oliver had been arrested, yes. But the note, the syringe, the timeline, something wasn't right. Something didn't add up. Emma must have sensed it too. "Where's Oliver now?" she demanded. "In custody," one officer said. But the way he said it made Emma straighten. "In custody," she repeated. or being transported. Another pause. Transported, he admitted, to a station with a holding cell. Emma's face darkened. So he's not locked in yet? Not yet. And is he handcuffed to anything? The officers exchanged another look. No, the taller one said. He's handcuffed, but he's not restrained to the van. Emma swore under her breath. She turned to me with eyes filled with the kind of fear you only have when you see a disaster forming faster than anyone can stop it. Elena, he's not done. He won't stop. Not until he's completed that list. My heartbeat spiked again. Not because of fear for myself, but because of Harper. She may have been part of the betrayal, but no one deserved to die for it. And Oliver had proven exactly what he was. A predator who finished what he started. Emma stood abruptly. I'm going to find Harper, she said. She warned us. She saved your life. If he gets to her. No, the officer said firmly. You're not leaving this ward. You're one of the intended victims. You're staying under police protection until this is resolved. Emma opened her mouth to fight. But then something happened. Something that froze every drop of blood in my body. The lights flickered. Not once, but twice. The officer frowned. That's odd. No storm, no power issues reported. And then, from the end of the corridor, a noise. Small, metallic, echoing. A clink. Another. Emma stiffened. That's the sound of handcuffs. The officer shook his head. Impossible. He's in transport. But the sound grew louder. Clink, clink. Heel steps followed slow, dragging, uneven. Then a voice. A voice I knew more intimately than my own heartbeat. Elena. Emma grabbed the emergency alarm button. What the hell he was in transport? The officer's radio crackled violently. Unit 4. Prisoner escaped. Static. Van overturned. Static. Suspect fleeing on foot. Static. Emma whispered the words I couldn't speak. He's here, Oliver. Bleeding from the forehead. Handcuffs dangling from one wrist. Eyes wild with hatred and obsession. He stepped into view. Broken, limping, unhinged. But not defeated. Not even close. He stared directly at me, then raised the broken cuff like a weapon. I told you, Elena, he hissed. This isn't finished. The officers drew their weapons instantly. Emma stood between Oliver and my bed again, her hands trembling but her stance unmovable, a human shield between me and death. Oliver took one step forward. A single, heavy step. Move, he growled at Emma. Or you go first. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. Then Oliver's eyes flickered, not to Emma, not to the officers, but to something else. The life support machine. And in that split second of realization, he lunged, not toward me, but toward the machine keeping me alive. Emma screamed. The officers shouted. Everything blurred. And Oliver reached out his hand to rip the ventilator tube free. The room erupted, but I could already feel it. Air slipping away, darkness closing in, and the unmistakable truth. This time, he might actually succeed. There's a peculiar kind of silence that fills a room when life is slipping away. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of panic, thick, heavy, suffocating. That was the silence when Oliver's hand wrapped around the ventilator tube. The moment he yanked it, everything inside me folded inward. Air vanished, lungs burned, my vision exploded into black stars swirling like ink. I could hear nothing except the shrill shriek of the machines and the frantic screams of Emma. Stop! Stop, you psychopath! The officers lunged forward. Oliver roared a wild, animalistic sound, swinging his free cuff like a blade. It caught one officer across the cheek, slicing skin. Blood splattered. The second officer grabbed Oliver's arm, trying to wrench him back, but Oliver twisted, aiming straight for the ventilator plug. Let go of it! Emma shouted. He didn't. He doubled down. His fingers closed around the cable that fed air into my lungs, and he began to pull. The world dimmed. Sound thinned. Every thought flickered like a dying bulb. For the first time since the accident, I felt myself leaving my body, drifting, not peacefully, but violently, wrongly, with unfinished terror clinging to me like barbed wire. My ears rang, my chest spasmed, my body arched instinctively, trying to breathe. But nothing came. No air, no oxygen, just fire. Emma threw herself at Oliver again, pure adrenaline driving her. She clawed at his wrist, tears streaming down her face. "You're killing her, let go!" Oliver shoved her with his shoulder so hard she slammed into the wall, gasping. He turned back to the machine, to me, to his target. The officer tackled him again, but Oliver twisted like a man possessed, a man determined to finish the job, even if it killed him too. He grabbed the ventilator's main valve. If he turned that valve, there would be no recovery. It would be over. My heartbeat slowed in my ears. A dull, distant thud. Then another. Then weaker. I felt myself sinking, not metaphorically, literally sinking into darkness. And then a sound tore through the haze. A scream. High, sharp, desperate. "Stop, please!" A woman's voice. Harper's. Through the collapsing tunnel of my vision, I saw her appear in the doorway. Hair wild, face streaked with tears, coat half off her shoulder, as if she had run the entire way, sprinting blindly across the city. "Oliver, please," she cried, voice breaking. "Don't do this." He froze. For the first time, his shoulders tensed, his face twitched, his grip faltered. "Harper," he rasped. She stepped inside, sobbing. "Please, please stop. You said you loved me." "Get out," Oliver bellowed. "No," she screamed back. "You told me it was an accident. You told me she wouldn't feel anything. You told me—" "I told you to wait at home," he snapped. Harper dropped to her knees, shaking. "She doesn't deserve this," she sobbed. "She didn't deserve what you did. I didn't know, Oliver, I swear." "Leah!" Oliver roared, lunging toward her. The officers took that moment. They pounced. This time, rage made Oliver slower, or maybe he had finally burned through the last of his sanity. They pinned him down, one arm across his neck, another grappling for the cuff dangling from his wrist. Oliver screamed, fought, thrashed, but he couldn't reach the machine again. Emma stumbled back to my bedside, hands trembling as she reconnected the tube, slamming every switch back into place. Come on, Elena," she whispered. Air blasted into my lungs, painfully, sharply, almost violently. But it was air, real air. I gasped, a faint, broken sound, but enough to flood my bloodstream with oxygen. My vision flickered back. Emma sobbed with relief, pressing a hand against my cheek. "You're okay. You're okay. Stay with me, Elena." Behind her, Oliver was still screaming my name, twisting, fighting, snarling like something feral. "I'll finish this. Do you hear me? I'll finish." A syringe jabbed into his thigh, a tranquilizer. Within seconds, his body slackened. His limbs dropped. His voice faded. He collapsed onto the floor, foam at the corner of his mouth. Silence fell. Real silence this time. But a silence laced with shock, aftershocks, and the echoes of what almost happened. Emma didn't leave my side, not for a second. Harper collapsed against the wall, shaking uncontrollably, whispering, "What have I done? Oh God, what have I done?" Oliver lay unconscious on the floor, surrounded by officers, restraints, medical staff rushing in with crash carts. Emma clung to my hand as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. Harper rocked back and forth, whispering apologies to a God she hadn't believed in until this moment. For a breath, just one. I thought it was finally over. But then the senior consultant rushed in. He looked at me, then at the machine, then at the disconnected cables, and his face changed. "Who touched this?" he demanded. Emma swallowed. "He did, Oliver." The consultant shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "There's more. Someone tampered with this earlier, hours ago." Emma stiffened. "What do you mean?" "This wasn't just a pull," he said grimly. "This machine was deliberately sabotaged." Emma's eyes widened, and he added, "Whoever did it was inside this room long before Oliver arrived. There are two kinds of danger in this world, the one you can see coming, and the one that's already inside the room long before you realize it. Oliver was danger type 1. Loud, violent, obvious. But the consultant's words carved a different terror into the air. Someone sabotaged the machine hours before Oliver arrived. A second hand, a second threat, a second enemy. Someone had come for me quietly, deliberately, calculatingly, while I lay helpless, mute, trapped inside my own body. The room reacted instantly. Emma stared at the consultant, eyes wide with disbelief. "Who?" she whispered. "Who could have done that?" He shook his head. "We're checking security footage now. Whoever it was, they knew exactly which valve to loosen, which cable to weaken. That wasn't clumsy. That was intentional. Intentional." The words sat like ice in my chest. Oliver wasn't acting alone. Harper, still trembling in the corner, pressed a hand over her mouth. "It wasn't me," she croaked. I swear I never touched anything. I didn't even know. I didn't know he'd..." Her voice crumbled completely. Emma didn't answer her. Couldn't. Because the truth was sitting right there between all of us. Someone else wanted me dead. Someone who had access to my room. Someone who knew the layout. Someone who could move without suspicion. The consultant lowered his voice. "There's something else." Emma turned sharply. "What?" "We checked access logs," he said. "At 4:17 p.m., someone badged into this room for exactly 40 seconds. Who?" "We don't know yet. The badge ID doesn't match any registered staff." Emma blinked slowly. "Someone used a fake badge." The weight of those words crushed me. A fake identity. A hidden visitor. A second murderer. And suddenly, Oliver seemed like only half the nightmare. Harper pushed herself up shakily. "Elena didn't have enemies," she said, voice shaking. "She was kind, quiet. She worked. She went home. Who would want to?" But she stopped. Because she realized it too. The answer wasn't in my past. It was in my present. Emma whispered the words I couldn't speak. "Oliver." The consultant nodded grimly. It's possible he had help. Or someone who believed his version of events. Or someone who stood to benefit. Harper's breath caught. "You think I?" "No," Emma snapped too quickly, too firmly. Then softer. "No. You warned us. You came running. You saved her life. You don't sabotage a machine and then fight to stop him." Harper collapsed again, weeping. But Emma wasn't even looking at her anymore. She was staring at the door. At the corridor. At every shadow that could hide a second attacker. "Elena," she whispered to me, leaning close. "We're not safe yet. And I promise you, I'm not leaving this room until we find out who did this. Not ever." Her voice shook with fear, with guilt, with anger she didn't know where to direct. The next hour passed in fragments. Doctors checking my vitals. Police photographing evidence. Harper sobbing quietly. Emma refusing to move even an inch from my bedside. But underneath all of it, something else brewed. A tension. A suspicion. A question no one dared ask. If it wasn't Harper, and it wasn't Oliver, then who else wanted me dead? Police officers gathered in the corridor, murmuring. Emma strained to hear. And though she tried to hide it, fear carved deep lines into her face. "Elena," she whispered suddenly, "when this goes online, when people hear your story one day, please promise me you'll remind every woman watching. If something feels wrong, it is wrong. If you're watching this right now, listening with your heart pounding, drop a comment. Tell someone if you've ever ignored a red flag. It might save your life." She squeezed my hand. "But right now, we need to survive this next hour." The consultant returned, breathless. "We've checked the cameras." Emma straightened. "And?" "We confirmed a figure entered the ward at 4:17 p.m. face covered, hood up. They approached Elena's door, went inside for 40 seconds, then left through the fire exit. Did you see the face? Anything?" "No, but..." He hesitated. "There's something about the height, the build, the way they walked. It looked..." Emma's breath hitched. "Like someone familiar." "Familiar to who?" she asked. "To all of us." Before he could finish, a police sergeant rushed down the hall. "We've got the badge, the fake one." "Whose name is on it?" Emma demanded. The sergeant hesitated. Then he looked at Harper. and Harper's face broke into horror before he even spoke. "No," she whispered, backing away. "No, no, no, no." "Harper Clark," the sergeant said quietly. "It's your badge number." Harper gasped, grabbing her hair, shaking her head violently. "No, that's not me. I was with Oliver all afternoon. I didn't come here. I swear." Emma froze. I froze. Everyone froze. The sergeant continued. "We checked the logs. The real Harper's badge never left the staff room. Someone cloned it. Cloned. Someone had framed her. Someone who wanted Harper blamed. Someone who wanted suspicion off themselves. Someone working within the system, who knew how badges worked, who knew how to access machines, who knew the building. Someone still out there. Someone still watching." Emma whispered. "Then who?" And the consultant answered quietly. "We have one more camera angle." It caught the shoes. Emma stiffened. "What shoes?" "Black trainers, medical grade, only issued to..." He paused. Emma felt the answer before he spoke it. "To senior staff." The consultant nodded slowly, then said the words that shattered the last illusion of safety. "It was a doctor." Emma stumbled back as if someone had punched her. "A doctor," she repeated, voice hollow. "Someone with access. Someone who could move freely. Someone who could walk in and disconnect a machine without anyone questioning it." The sergeant added quietly. "And someone who hasn't shown up for shift tonight." The consultant swallowed hard. "That's not all." We zoomed in. "The shoes belonged to someone from this ward." Emma's lips parted. "No." A chill swept through the room. The consultant whispered, "Elena's primary doctor, Dr. Reed." Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Harper backed into the wall, pale as snow. I felt my heart monitor spike. Fear, disbelief, betrayal, all crashing at once. Because Dr. Reed, the one who examined me, the one who updated Oliver, the one who made decisions about my care, the one I trusted. Emma whispered the words none of us wanted to hear. "He's not done. And if he sabotaged the machine earlier..." She turned to the police, eyes wide. "He might already be somewhere inside this hospital." And that's when the lights flickered again. If you're still watching, what do you think Dr. Reed's motive was? Money, Oliver, or something else entirely? Leave a comment. Your thoughts might open up the next direction in this investigation. There are moments in life when everything you thought you understood, every belief, every assumption, every rule of safety, collapses beneath your feet like rotten wood. For me, that moment came when Emma whispered, "Dr. Reed." It was him. The man who had held my wrist to check my pulse. The man who had told Emma I was stable. The man who had spoken softly to me as if comforting me. Was the same man who had stepped into my room at 4:17 p.m. with a cloned card and loosened the very tube that kept me alive. A second killer. A professional one. A man wearing a stethoscope and a smile. The police wasted no time. "Evacuate this wing," the lead officer ordered. "Check every exit. He's still somewhere in the building." Panic rippled through the corridors. Nurses shouting. Patients wheeled out. Doors slamming shut. Footsteps pounding past my room. Emma stood, frozen anger, betrayal, and terror flickering across her face. "He's been seeing Elena every day," she murmured. Touching her charts, touching her machines. I trusted him. Harper was trembling violently in a chair, hugging herself. "I've worked with him for 8 months, she whispered. "He always brought the nurses chocolate. He always laughed. He always remembered everyone's birthdays." Emma snapped sharply. That's how predators survive. They blend in. A detective stepped into my room. "Elena, we need to ask you something urgently." Emma moved in closer, ready with the letterboard. "Blink once for yes, twice for no," the detective said. His voice was gentle, but underneath, tight with urgency. "Did Dr. Reed ever speak to you when no one was in the room?" "Yes." I blinked once. Emma stiffened. "Did he ever say anything strange?" "Yes." "Did he ever mention Oliver?" the detective pressed. My eyelids fluttered once more, a hard, deliberate yes. The room froze. Emma whispered, "What did he say?" The detective leaned forward. "Elena, did Dr. Reed know about Oliver's financial trouble?" One blink. Did he know Oliver stood to gain from your death? One blink. Did he ever imply he agreed with Oliver? A pause. Every breath in the room suspended. Then, one blink. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. The detective exhaled slowly. So Dr. Reed wasn't killing for revenge or hatred. He was killing for a motive. Harper's voice cracked. What motive? The detective answered. Money. The next minutes unfolded like a thriller. Police radios crackled. Suspect spotted on stairwell B. Negative, that was a janitor. Possible movement in the basement corridor. No visual. Every second was a new knot tightening around my ribs. Emma finally knelt beside me, her voice shaking. Elena, I'm so sorry. The man we trusted with your life was working to end it. I wanted to scream, cry, shout, anything, but I could only lie there, trapped, as boots thundered up and down the hallway. Then the lights flickered, once, twice, and the room plunged half into shadow. Emma stiffened. No, no, please no. Another voice shouted from the corridor. He cut the power grid to this wing. A blackout. He was trying again, trying to finish the job. My machines beeped erratically. Alarms sounded. The emergency generator struggled to kick in. Emma moved faster than I'd ever seen her. Don't you dare, Elena. Don't you dare leave me. She grabbed the manual pump attached to my ventilator, squeezing it rhythmically to keep oxygen flowing into my lungs. The detective shouted, Stay in the room. Lock the door. Emma locked it immediately. But then, a new sound. Footsteps. Soft, slow, purposeful, just outside. Emma's eyes widened. Is that? A voice came through the door. Calm, low, chillingly polite. Elena, it's Dr. Reed. I need to check your lines. Please open the door. Emma's grip tightened on the pump. Get away from this door, she growled. Emma, he continued, I understand you're frightened, but Elena's vitals are unstable. If you don't let me in, she could die. Emma swallowed hard. That's exactly what you want. He chuckled softly. So, you figured it out. The detective pressed his back to the wall, gun raised. The footsteps stopped. Then, a metallic clink. He was trying to pick the lock. Emma whispered, Elena, if you can hear me, hang on. Hang on for me. I blinked once. My only way of screaming, yes, I am still here. I am still fighting. The detective signaled silently. On my mark. The lock clicked. The door creaked. A shadow slipped in. The detective lunged. A crash erupted bodies, hitting walls, metal clattering, Emma screaming, Dr. Reed snarling as he tried to reach my machines. A gunshot rang out. Then, silence. Dead silence. I lay there, heart pounding through the ventilator pump Emma still held. Then I heard it. Emma's voice, trembling but alive. Elena, you're safe. He's down. Police swarmed in, seconds later, cuffing the half-conscious doctor on the floor. One of them muttered, If we'd been 30 seconds later. Emma cut him off sharply. She'd still be dead. He came to finish her. And in that moment, the truth settled over the room like smoke after an explosion. Oliver wanted me dead for money. Dr. Reed wanted me dead for money and for him. They weren't two separate threats. They were a partnership, a dual betrayal, a two-man execution plan. When they wheeled Dr. Reed away, he turned his head toward me. Even beaten, bleeding, and in handcuffs, he smiled. You were supposed to die quietly, he whispered. You ruined everything. But the only thing he ruined was himself. Emma sank into the chair beside me, tears spilling freely. Elena, it's over. It's really over. For the first time in weeks, the air in my lungs felt like mine. Two men had tried to erase me, but I survived both. And what comes next is my story, not theirs. If you've made it this far, comment, I choose to live. Because sometimes, just one sentence is powerful enough to pull someone back from the edge. There's a strange quiet that follows survival, not peace, not relief, just quiet. The kind you hear after a storm tears the roof off your house, and somehow you're still standing in the rubble. That was my life in the months after Oliver and Dr. Reed were arrested. Not victory, not triumph, just the slow, aching process of learning how to exist again. Oliver's trial came first. He tried to look remorseful. He tried to cry. He tried to pretend the last months never happened. But the recordings didn't lie. Neither did the breakline forensics. Neither did Harper's testimony. Neither did Emma, who nearly died fighting to keep me breathing. And me. I spoke through the assisted voice device the therapists gave me. My words, electronic, shaky, but mine. The courtroom went silent when I said, "He planned my funeral while I was still alive." Oliver Chen was sentenced to 25 years to life. He didn't look at me once when they put the cuffs on him. Cowardice to the very end. Dr. Reed's trial was colder. Oliver acted out of desperation, greed, panic. Reed acted out of calculation. No emotion, no apology, no trembling hands or excuses. When the judge asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, Reed simply said, "Some lives are less necessary than others." A doctor, a man sworn to save lives, and that was his defense. He received life imprisonment without parole. Even the bailiff flinched at the lack of humanity in his voice. Harper sat beside me in court. Her hands still shook. Sometimes trauma isn't tidy. But she survived too. She apologized to me 100 times, as if she needed forgiveness for nearly becoming collateral damage. I held her hand with the little strength I had that day, and whispered through my device, "You saved me." She broke down crying, because it was true. If she hadn't run into that hospital room, if she hadn't screamed for help, if she hadn't told the truth, I would not be here. Harper and I aren't friends, but we're forever connected. Two women who survived the same monster. Emma, on the other hand, is more than a friend. She's the anchor of my new life. She fought for me when I had no voice. She kept me breathing with her bare hands. She slept in plastic hospital chairs. She held my hand when I cried, and sometimes she cried with me. After the trials ended, she came to my flat in Castlefield with 2 bottles of wine and a bag of lemon shortbread. She sat on my sofa, kicked off her shoes, and after a long, heavy silence said, "Elena, next time you nearly die, could you please warn me first? I'd like to book time off." We laughed, and for the first time in a very long time, it didn't hurt to laugh. She's my family now, not by blood, but by battle. My recovery wasn't quick. It wasn't pretty. I learned how to breathe without machines again, how to hold a pen, how to walk without collapsing, how to sleep without nightmares of footsteps outside my door. Every victory was small. Every victory was enormous. The doctors call it miraculous progress. I call it stubbornness. I refuse to let 2 men decide the ending of my story. A year later, on a soft spring morning, I stood on a bridge overlooking the River Irwell. The water was calm, rare for Manchester, and the breeze was cool, not cruel. I held something in my hand, a folded piece of paper. My discharge summary. The last document tying me to the hospital. I opened it one last time. Read the words. Patient survived attempted homicide. Survived. That was the only word that mattered. I tore the paper into small pieces and let the wind take them. They fluttered over the water, then disappeared. Light, free, gone. Just like the version of me who almost died. People ask if I'm scared Oliver will get out someday, but I'm not. Strength isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to obey it. People ask if I think about Reed. I don't. You don't give nightmares the courtesy of attention. People ask how I learned to trust again. And I tell them, I trusted myself first. The rest came naturally after that. Now I volunteer with a domestic safety charity. I speak to women who whisper the same sentences I once whispered. I think something is wrong. I think he's hiding something. I feel unsafe, but I can't prove it. I'm scared no one will believe me. And I look at them, with all the honesty, all the scars, all the hard-earned truth I carry, and I say, I believe you, because belief saved my life. Emma believed me, and that changed everything. Sometimes, at night, when the city lights glow orange against the clouds, I sit by my window and place my hand on my chest, not to check if I'm alive, but to feel how alive I am. I survived betrayal. I survived violence. I survived 2 men who thought I would die quietly, but I didn't. I lived. I screamed in silence until someone heard me. I fought without moving a muscle. I rose again in ways they never imagined. And now, every breath I take is a sentence in the story they failed to end. If you're still here, comment. I trust my intuition. Because sometimes, a single comment like that can be enough to save someone trapped in their own darkness, just like Elena once was.